So we come to another Friday in July 2022. Do you realize, Pat, we'll never have this Friday in July 2022 ever again? Does that keep you awake at night? Or
sure, we won't have yesterday ever again either.
No, I know it's awful, isn't it? The bloody things slip away from you, and the older you get, the more they speed them up.
Exactly. You know? Exactly.
It's like a bloody hurdy-gurdy where the kids are going along nice and happy, and the next thing they're flying and looping off the chairs.
Dude, you know something like that? One day it occurred to me, one day my kids were sitting on my knee, and the next day their kids were sitting on my knee. And you sort of go, where did it go?
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say, next day I'm sitting on their knee.
Well, that could well be the case too.
Well, the thing it gets me is the kids, you find your kids are giving you advice rather than you giving them advice. You know, but that's okay.
Sure,
that's okay.
Sure. Now every time something goes wrong, there's one of my kids is a bit of a computer buff. And every time there's something goes wrong, after you ring up, Paddy, what do you do with this? How do you work this? So now my kids are helping me rather than me helping them.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Okay, shall we address the affairs of the nation? And when I say the nation, I got to, incidentally, just before I forget, I just come from, the reason I was a little late today was I was out at a picture framing gallery, a place that sells frames and mounts pictures. So we left two things for them to frame. One was an old deed my wife's grandfather, I think, got as to what he would have to pay for renting this bit of land or the house or whatever. And it's really a really old document, 1904 or something like that, maybe. And we framed it, and it's really lovely, or getting it framed. Another thing getting framed is my daughter, my son-in-law sent me with my daughter a little, quite an old map of Ireland, quite small, but quite old. But apparently the guy does this, and in gold lettering on it is Ireland is always a good idea.
Brilliant.
That's beautiful.
Exactly.
It's not aggressively political or anything. It's
just
bit of class.
Yeah.
Okay, enough of such idle chatter. Let's get cracking. There's so many things in the paper today. There's at least two in the Irish Times this morning that really got my attention. And one was by Emma de Souza. You remember had a
she had a battle about getting her husband's recognized as Irish rather than British.
Yeah. And she won, didn't she?
As far as I remember, she got some sort of
She writes very well. She's got an article today in the Irish Times, and what she's talking about is to what extent the South, she says Dublin, has made efforts to form links with, to encourage togetherness with the North. And she's quite scathing. She says, they failed and failed again. I'll just read out this wee bit and then we'll have a chat. She says, what we have in place of representation is a litany of failed commitments and promises. Observer status for Northern Ireland in the European Parliament, dead in the water. Speaking rights for MLAs and MPs from Northern Ireland in the Dáil as Shannon, blocked by the government. Referendum and expanding presidential voting rights to Irish citizens in Northern Ireland and abroad, indefinitely postponed. So she says, when she puts it like that, it sounds as if the Dublin government is intent on not following through with efforts to shared island rather than committed to it. Would that be too harsh?
Not at all, Jude. I always have this one that the Dublin government never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity when it comes to when it comes to Northern Ireland.
Yeah,
Jude, it's unbelievable. Like I think there's only been two, if I remember correctly, Taoiseach nominations to the Senate since about 20 years. One of them was Morris Hayes. I can't remember the other one.
Ian Marshall.
Ian Marshall wasn't.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
He was. I can't remember. He won.
He was nominated by Leo Varadkar.
He was a Fine Gael nomination. That's what it was, and he won the election. But I can't remember. Martin McAleese.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, Jude, there was talk for a long time. France. I remember seeing years ago people outside the French embassy in Dublin getting on to vote for the French presidential election. People living there. people in the north can't vote for the president. Surely for the Irish president, who, by the way, the term is President of Ireland, not President of the Republic of Ireland, President of Ireland. There's all sorts of things. They keep saying those soft words that they're going to do this, they're going to do that. They never do.
Pat,
that list you read out, the observer status and the. By the way, the other thing as well, Jude, I should point out, once the Britain pulled out of the EU, Northern Ireland lost its voice in Europe. There was no, the Dublin government could have made overtures to some of them and say, look, we'll give you observer status on our behalf and the EU. We will take people on board, and so on, to listen to what your concerns are. None of this happened, Jude.
Actually, at that time, Pat, they got increased representation in the European Parliament. At the time when we in the North lost it because of Brexit, they actually were given something like 2 extra seats because for some reason or another. And I remember at the time suggesting that they should maybe pass them to us, but no dice, No. I wonder, would it make a difference really? Or maybe a better question is, why do they not have, for example, presidential voting rights? Why do they?
I don't see any reason they couldn't do that. Now,
they must have a reason. They must have a reason for saying no.
Well, you see, the only reason I ever could come up with, because of maybe the political situation in the North, they could say that maybe if unionists got voting rights, the presidential thing in Republic, that they would do go out of their way to do something, like vote for my boat face type thing, deliberately screw it.
Pat, do you believe that unionists would pick up on the right to vote for the president of Ireland?
Dude, I haven't a clue.
I really don't think so. I don't think so, because they feel that was given an assent. Even they wanted to vote in Boaty McBoatface. I think it would be given assent in some way to the notion of Ireland as being.
But if you said, look, if you said it out, look, let's screw with these people, you could convince a substantial number to vote in a way that was detrimental.
You could, that's right. I suppose that's the thing at balance. But my guess is that they're sort of the way they would not step forward to anything that had any tint of an All Ireland to it.
But I can digress for a minute. I had a discussion yesterday. Yesterday was the 50th anniversary of Bloody Friday, and it's terrible. I am not justifying it for a second. But I noticed there are a lot of people coming out of the woodwork, people with Irish names, even Gaelic versions of their name, coming out and saying, rightly so, by the way. But the thing occurred to me is, see, when it's Bloody Sunday or the Ballymurphy massacre and all the rest of it, all these people piling in to have a go at the IRA, they're noticeable by their absence when it comes to the atrocities of the British state. And by the way, that's not a small point, it's a big point. It reminds me of Owen Harris's one. After the Glenanne gang, all the revelations, but he said it was important that the focus was kept on and not didn't go away from the IRA. Like, in other words, the narrative had to be that the nationalists were always wrong.
More important than that there should never be any equivalence between the forces of law and order and the terrorists. I think that's, incidentally, that man I was talking to you about before we came in the air. His sister was killed in one of the explosions on Bloody Friday. Now, he hasn't allowed that to. I mean, he loved his sister, a very affectionate guy, but he has never allowed that to interfere with his view on how Ireland should be governed. In other words, he's largely a Republican. But the fact that Republicans were responsible for the death of his sister, he accepted that was terrible and he wished it hadn't happened. But his view was that wasn't what they set out to do. His daughter or his sister was dead now, and he accepted that. I just thought that was so much in contrast to some of the people who have been killed by the IRA, or the relatives of some of the people who've been killed by the IRA. They hug a kind of bitterness. That there isn't an equivalent. Am I painting it too black and white there?
No, Jude, there's this sort of fun gale that I considered. Jude, I am not batting for the IRA, and I've never supported it. But here's the thing. Like, there's almost this, and it's never ending. It's almost if the whole situation in the North came out of a vacuum, and that they can't get their head around the fact that there was this place was set up in a bigoted and sectarian way. There was oppression. There was 50 years of rule. The police force was 93% Protestant Unionists. The B specials were 100% Protestant Unionists. There was discrimination. There was massive immigration. There was poverty, and they don't seem to get what. No, in a pressure cooker like that, does everybody think everybody's going to be like Mahatma Gandhi? No, there are going to be people who are going to rebel.
Yeah. I see. We're talking about two things here. One is, I've led us off down this path. This question of how you respond to an overture like this, or how you respond to some relative being killed. Let's stick with these overtures. It is clear from what Emma de Souza writes in the Irish Times today that again and again the Southern government has not followed through on their words about presidential voting rights, speaking rights for MLAs, or observer status in the EU Parliament. Is it that has to be deliberate policy? Is it? Absolutely, or is it just they're too busy doing other things? Do you think it's deliberate?
Not only the Dublin government nowadays are great at pointing the finger at London and saying, but let's get this clear. They had taken their eyes totally off the North as well. Jude, I remember, and I've said this to you before, one day I was walking down the street in Derry at the Strand Road, and I met a wee guy that I know, and he told me that, this is before Martin McGuinness died, that the talks in Stormont were not going well and such and such. The next thing I heard Martin McGuinness, so a very ill-looking Martin McGuinness, going on TV to announce that they was because of the RHI scandal, the Stormont was going down. Tommy Gorman, who was then Northern Editor, RT, comes on RT and says, this has come as a shock to the Dublin government. This is about 5 weeks after I had the conversation with a wee man on Strand Road. And I was thinking to myself, if a wee man on Strand Road can tell me that there's deep doo-doo up in Stormont and the things are going to come crashing down soon, and the Dublin government didn't know that was going to happen, I was thinking, hey, the Dublin government is seriously out of touch.
Well, on the other hand, was Tommy saying, do you feel he was reporting that accurately?
Yeah, Tommy says this has come as a major shock. I was told by a certain diplomat that we both know that the Dublin government hadn't talked directly to Sinn Féin at that stage for well over a year.
Oh. It just seems to be incredible. I think they'll find themselves eventually more and more forced into the position where they'll have to follow through on some of these things, like the presidential voting rights, like speaking rights for MLAs.
But Jude, I've said this a million times as well. Micheál Martin is milk and water when it comes to this whole Northern question. Shared, I don't know about you, Jude, but I have seen no evidence of this shared island. I meet people regularly. Me and you have been involved in this. I read quite a lot. I've yet to hear any hard evidence of what the shared island is doing. Now, maybe it's having a couple of meetings and maybe they're drawing up some sort of perspectives. But this government is 2 years in office at this stage, and there's still no sign I can see of anything. Maybe there's something happening I don't know about.
Yeah, Sinn Féin is a official opposition. Now, why have they not sort of forefronted these failures of observer status, speaking rights, presidential voting rights? They haven't highlighted those and their criticism of the government.
No, they haven't. But the one other point that Susan made, there's probably worth. She said, and I agree with this totally. She's calling for an all-Ireland sort of citizens' assembly. And she doesn't necessarily have to be restricted to the unity debate about all issues about climate, about social care, about healthcare, about what's the best things we can do for all the people of the island, and just explore those. And what she means is have someone ready then. I hate to borrow a phrase from another politician, but have an oven-ready deal. If we can sort out and channel all these things, then we know where we're going. We have a roadmap. But right now, there's no. Dude, this shared island seems to be a few civil servants getting well paid for doing what?
Yeah. You see, that thing about setting up citizens' assemblies for things like climate and so on, that is similar to the notion of the protocol, which is good for business. But because it's good for, despite the fact that it's good for business, unionists don't want any part of it because they feel it's somehow detaching them from the UK. I think likewise, even other things like such as you've mentioned, climate crisis, etc. Well, Sammy Wilson's obvious person there. They don't want any part of it.
No.
I'm fearful of falling into the trap where I'm saying these unionists, they won't, they can't address something that's as obvious as a nose in your face. Am I being extreme in saying that? Unfair to them?
Well, the latest figures from I think it's the Central Statistics Office from the Republic, but they track imports and exports. Yeah. And Jude, the protocol is most certainly working. There's certain parts of it, I think engineering might have a wee bit of difficulty, but cross-border trade is up both ways. It's definitely working. And there's almost a sort of, there's a spot in your face, but I'm going to deny there's a spot in your face because it doesn't suit me to tell you that there's a spot in your face. That seems to be the unionist attitude towards the protocol. They're almost in denial about something that's actually working well. And, by the way, Jude, I think they've stopped using this thing about the trade because that is patently untrue.
Well, they're going to almost certainly, the way they talk now, and that's another question, the way the media treats Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. But the word is that Liz Truss is going to be the next prime minister, and she is totally in favor of scrapping the protocol.
Yeah, Jude. Well, very simple. I was listening to a guy on yesterday. He said there's 150,000 or so Tory party voters. He says the vast majority of them, the biggest cohort, are white, male, and over 50. And Jude, those guys will not be voting for it. And let's get this on the record as well. Rishi Sunak is not of their ilk. They would rather have a new Margaret Thatcher than an Asian guy or a guy of Asian descent coming in. And I am certain that race will play a part in that. They simply do, when they look in the mirror, they do not see Rishi Sunak. He's not one of theirs.
You are spot on, Pat. I had an example of that the other day. Yeah. Somebody I was talking to, and he used a word about Rishi Sunak, which I wouldn't repeat. Yeah. And my daughter, I told the story, and my daughter says, "Wait, what did you say to him?" And I said, "Well, I didn't say anything. I just, I wasn't going to change his mind." But you see, younger people will not put up with that. Younger people who've got a balanced view and fairness and so on, they don't put up with that kind of thing. Being older, I've learned to, whatever you say nothing sort of thing. Yeah. What would you do in those circumstances? Let me quickly give you a quick example. We were in, years ago now, it's 20 years nearly now, we were in Vancouver, and the prof who had sort of hired me for the summer school was driving, I think he was picked us up at the airport, or picked up our son Matt, who was joining us. Yeah. And he was giving out about the number of Asians that were poor drivers in Vancouver. And our son, Matt, immediately said, "Do you have a problem with Asians?" And he says, no. I would never have dreamt of saying that. Well, I might have dreamt of it, but I wouldn't have said it because it just would have seemed to me to be lighting a fuse. What would your line be on that kind of thing?
Jude, I have to admit, I'm a total card like yourself. I would not. Jude, I was in Australia, and we were in Melbourne one time, and this guy, the loveliest man, one of the best people I ever met in my life. And one time there's this Asian guy, now he was terrible driving. He pulled out a side road in front of him, and your man had his lamp, and he went, swearing away and whatever, effing Asian drivers and all. But I remember thinking, it was the first time I ever heard him sort of being sectarian. By the way, I said nothing, by the way, just in case you're wondering.
Well, you see, our kids, like my daughter or my sons, they would see that as a failure on our part. In a way, we've talked about this before. It's like the Catholic Church in 1952 in Ireland. Yeah. You got to speak up for God's grace. Everything clerical. Whereas now, in terms of things like race and gender and so on, you must be super strictly observant of the line. Actually, I think in this case they're right, but you're right. I think you're right. Richie, here, mark my words. I sort of half regret this and half don't. Richie Sunak will not be the Prime Minister of the UK.
Yeah, I'm 98% certain that's going to happen. And race, Jude, they'll deny it right, left, and centre, but race will play an issue in it.
Yeah, you can use them as a second, the second, and it's like in the north again, deputy first minister, but no, not that first minister slot.
We can't have one of those in the top office. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Boris Johnson, who's sadly left us. And we'll talk a bit about what he's done as a politician in the House of Commons. But tell me this: what do you think of his farewell speech?
Jude, I thought it was absolutely atrocious. I really genuinely did. Hasta la vista, baby. Copying a German speaking Spanish and an English film. Jude, what happened, quoting Shakespeare or Keats or somebody, somebody of gravitas and status on the affairs of the nation saying so. Hasta la vista, baby. Now, I ask you, Jude, I think it summed up the man totally. This is a guy, Jude, he should have been writing for the Sun. That's a level he's at. He should never have been allowed into office. No, his legacy. I was listening to his speech, Jude, and it was beyond delusional. He was talking about he got Brexit done, he got this done, another. He got bugger all done. Brexit's still not done. There's a whole row with the EU coming down the track. What do you call it? Britain has the least growth rate in the EU or of the G7. What else? There's only Russia is going to do worse. Their inflation rate's the highest in the EU. That's the legacy he's left them.
Well, let me tell you what my response is. I grudgingly have to say I thought his farewell speech was lively and not at all cowed by the fact that there must have been a lot of people in that chamber who hated him.
He's got an ego the size of a planet.
Yeah, it didn't bother
him. If he crapped himself, he would expect somebody else to wipe his backside. He's that arrogant.
Yeah, your metaphors are so magnificent, sometimes bad. Yeah. Well, I thought, see this, hasta la vista, baby. I you see, that's the common man stuff. He knows that will resonate. Shakespeare. It'd only get maybe, 1/10 of the British population. But hasta la vista, baby. That gets everybody.
But Jude, that's I know, and it's almost arrogance on my part. But do you want? I know if you want to go to see a clown, go to a circus. Go
to the zoo or something. You think he's with this article, and it's by no less than Stephen Collins, by the way, in there he's taking
your favorite.
He says his support meant that the 2016 referendum went for leave. He says, due to him, in alliance with the ERG, he brought down Theresa May and ensured that the UK would leave not just the EU, but the single market and the customs union. All those are absolutely true. The difference is he would boast of those things. He sees those as achievements. And his other achievements he'd like to. Do you think he'll be back?
I don't think so, Jude. Like he was, someone. There's some people who are great campaigners, but should never be in office. I remember there's some people who are great journalists and awful editors. Their skill set was not that. The man, this guy is great for the public. He's a buffoon and he's got the intelligence he just that famous word, the zeitgeist. He automatically knows where people are at, and hasta la vista, baby, as you say. That's the phrase he'll keep. And then remember the famous "them's the breaks" and all that sort of stuff. That's all. But Jude, he's a clown. He's an absolute clown.
Well, I don't know. A clown would suggest that he isn't smart. I think he's very smart.
Oh, he's smart. He's
cunning.
He was totally unsuitable. Jude, Bertie Ahern was on radio this morning. He says, know the thing about politics, when you make a deal with a guy, you keep it. He says the problem with under Britain under Boris is nobody can take their word for it, and he says that is the problem. He says the other guy is sitting the other end of the table, you can't trust him. He says there's no progress.
Well, we're talking about Boris and the terrible impact he had. Don't think that's it, because exactly his line of talk, thinking, and acting is what Liz Truss will bring to the table, as they say now.
Yeah.
She, in her speeches in those debates, she emphasized, I'm someone who says something, and if they say it, they do it.
Yeah.
No two ways about it. But of course, and if you look at her record, it's nothing of the sort. She's, for example, she's the one who's going to destroy the protocol. So who was involved in constructing the protocol? Liz Truss.
Truss, yeah.
So we have, somebody says, Boris Johnson in a skirt.
Yeah, but here, Boris Johnson has said that they copped on that there would be a big problem with a hard border in the island of Ireland. So he conned the DUP into voting for him by saying there'd never be a border between Britain and Northern Ireland. And once he got them to shaft Theresa May, he introduced a border on the Irish Sea. So, like everything he's done has just been lie after lie after lie.
And he's backed off. Now, tell me this, how do you think this is going to be resolved? There's only two places, it seems to me, that borders can be. One is on the island of Ireland, and be in the Irish Sea. Which of the two in the end is going to happen? Or is it a third way?
No, I have a horrible suspicion that the end game for the Brits is they don't care about Ireland and I know the Republic of Ireland. So I am saying that if they go ahead with the protocol, where do you think it's going to end up? I think that there's going to have to introduce some sort of checks at the border and between North and South.
On land?
On land, yeah. I think that's the end game. No, unless Truss, but Jude, if you read anything David Frost is saying, he's become more and more hardline.
Oh yeah.
The EU's not going to tell us what to do, and we're going to, and so on, and we shouldn't, and listen to the old colonels. This is the four nations of the UK.
Yeah, but I tell you, Pat, the old colonels in England don't know the people along the border, not to mention all the... No, just,
you try putting up a customs post and these days, it'll go quicker than, snow off a rope.
That's right. Yeah. And I think the people who would try that kind of thing, who would know that themselves, it would be a recipe for total disaster, I think.
Absolutely.
Really. And I think one of the things that would make it total disaster is the Irish population in the south have moved towards republicanism.
Yeah.
I have begun to say, what a ridiculous idea having a border on this island. Sinn Féin's getting plenty of votes, and not all of those are voting for housing. Of course, they're voting for housing, and at the back of their minds, they know perfectly well that Sinn Féin is the champions of the United Ireland. By the way, I haven't this down for talking about, but did you see Mary Lou McDonald's speech at the National Press Club?
No, but I read Jude. Apparently, somebody, Andre Murphy, and I think the Andersonstown News says when you hear people talking about it, she says, it's a big deal. I've only heard a wee bit inviting people to come back to Ireland to build up Ireland and so on.
That was one of the things she did, and she did it very diplomatically too, because she said, some people want to settle and they'll make a great contribution and have made great contribution to the life of Australia, and we know Australia is very grateful for that and so on. And she says, but those of you who want to come back, enjoy your time here, enjoy the warmth, enjoy everything, but don't forget to come back. It was a terrific speech, I thought. It went on for a hell of a long time, and she was using auto cues now. But she delivered it very well.
Apparently, it sounded very like a real leader. To speak on behalf of the Irish nation.
Yeah, the real McCoy. In fact, yes, I would have felt a certain sense of pride. There was never a false note at any point.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running short of time. In fact, we're only 2 minutes, and in that time, I want you to address Edwina Curry's reaction to Liz Truss.
I thought she says she's a witch with a capital B.
That's witty. That's what I call witty.
I know.
Edwina's finest moment.
You can't use the B word on radio. So so you can't put it. I think she's referring to a female dog. But Liz Truss apparently has got zero sense of humor. She's like a headmistress, and she models herself on Thatcher, and I think she's trying to come across as a new Thatcher. So it's quite obvious Edwina's not very fond of her.
I think when you find that Edwina Curry is calling you out on online, you may have to check something. I must be doing something wrong here, because she's dismissing her.
Edwina was on Pat Kenny. I heard her, she's been on a couple of times, and Jude, she's always entertaining. You don't necessarily have to agree with her or not. But jeepers, when you consider the fact, Jude, that she remember she became a minister and so on, and then out of come that she had been having an affair with John Major.
That's the thing we should mention. I think we shouldn't have mentioned that, because we have to leave our listeners now with that thought embedded in their mind. John Major and Edwina saying, "Oh, darling, I've been waiting for you all evening." Okay, Pat.
All the best, Jude.
All the best. Thanks.